Before we even get remotely into the video, I do just want to say that this video has no spoilers for the Shadow of the Erdtree. Basically every single person who makes From Software content has gone down to Pound Town. They've gone down the high street and gone full throttle. Hell, the amount of Pound Town action has made Dexter Season 3 and Season 4 look like the very exact opposites of Pound Town, which, if you've watched Dexter Season 3 and 4, well then you know that's not said lightly. Now that disclaimer's out the way, let's get into the main topic of the video. Miquella The Unalloyed. This motherfucker gives me the heebie-jeebies. This guy is a creep. I am not a big fan of Miquella, and I haven't been for a really long time. There's so many creepy, manipulative, twatty moves that Miquella pulls all throughout Elden Ring story, and I really want to deep dive into him in this video. I know a lot of people have made Miquella videos in preparation for the Shadow of the Erdtree, so I want to spread my own little magic chocolate sauce all over that trope, and I want to talk about Miquella. Now there's a lot of interesting things that we're going to talk about in this video, but the first of which has really shocked me since I realised it is, the pests aren't so foreign to Miquella as you might think. Now, a lot of people have just grouped the pests in as these foreign entities that are just, hey, let's just jump on Melania's bandwagon. She doesn't particularly want us here, but fuck her, who cares? We want to be here, so we're going to be here. But I actually don't think it's that simple. The main reason I believe this is due to the fact that pests are in the Halig tree. I haven't seen anyone mention this, but to get to the Halig tree you need a medallion. We're only able to do it because we get it from the Albinaurics and from Castle Sol. So the only way the pests could have got here is if Miquella let them there, or someone who had the pendant allowed them there. So, considering all that, it doesn't seem like these pests are so foreign to Miquella's forces, or even Miquella himself. There's something really interesting about the fact that the pests and Miquella might be aligned. This has to do with the fact that the pests are called the abandoned children of the goddess, the abandoned children of the scarlet rot goddess, which is Malenia, who is located in the Halig tree. So, if they're abandoned, why are they there? I've had this little pest theory for a while now, that maybe Melania and Miquella weren't on the same page for all of their relationship. Now we know that Miquella absolutely adores Melania by the fact that he does seemingly everything for her. But what if their relationship wasn't as black and white? We know that Melania holds Miquella in high regards, but we also know that Miquella manipulates those around him using the unalloyed gold. The pests arose in the wake of Radhn and Melania's battle after her scarlet bloom, and yet we hear them as the unwanted children. Now if Miquella is allied with the pests, that would assume that Melania being controlled by Miquella was after her battle with Radhn. So that makes me think, oh well, isn't the main theory about Melania that she's been asleep since Finlay carried her to the Halig tree? That's what we thought, but what if that's not actually the case? What if she had been awake for some time after the battle with Radhn? And then, it was only then, after her bloom, and perhaps she became a bit too powerful, Miquella bewitched her. Of course, as always, this is speculation and theory crafting basing off what the little information we know about the pests, Miquella and Melania. This isn't 100% concrete evidence, but I personally believe this to be the case. Now the first theory I thought was quite based in logic. It was pretty reasonable, but this next theory, please buckle your britches, bitches, strap in and prepare for the G-force, because this theory is going to be a bit insane, but we do a lot of insane shit here on the channel, so enjoy. I actually don't think that the Miquella we see in-game, this childlike guy, is actually the real Miquella. I think this guy's a fake. My first reasoning for this is the most 100%, well not 100%, but the most likely real representation of Miquella, which is the cocoon inside the Halig tree, to me looks nothing like the one we see inside the opening cutscene and all depictions. My second reason is the fact that the guy inside the cocoon looks nothing like Miquella. Now I know when I've mentioned this before, a lot of people have said, well, either one, it's never been Miquella, or two, it's just Morgott's model. But there's a really interesting detail that everyone's forgot to say from that. If you look between the two models, you'll notice there's actually a detail that isn't on Morgott's model compared to the one inside the cocoon, and that would be the ring on this cocoon guy's finger. This straight away tells us that they're not one-to-one models. There are added details to this guy inside the cocoon, and I don't have the ability to compare them exactly, but I'm sure if you did compare them, there would be even more differences compared to Morgott's corpse. From Software adds so many little hidden details that they expect no one to find. They add them expecting that they'll never be found until years and years later. So don't you think it's a bit strange that for such an important detail they would just use the same model? It really doesn't fit From Software's etiquette for game design, until you consider maybe there's a reason why they actually use this specific model. Morgott is a child of Marika and Godfrey. The key word there being Marika, who is Miquella's mother, Marika as well. Don't you think maybe, considering these guys are both brothers, they would look kind of similar? To me, that seems like the most likely answer as to why they would use the same model. Which brings me back to my point from earlier. I don't think Miquella, the Miquella we see, is real. We know that Marika, Miquella's own mother, has her mimic veil. We know that it was in the capital. We know that it is Marika's mischief. Who's to say that this wasn't the only Marika's mischief going around? I mean, they were obviously available enough for Godric to steal it and flee the capital, so who's to say that originally Miquella didn't have one of his own? Hell, has one to this day. Which would also give an explanation as to why the spectral Miquella we see in the DLC original trailer actually looked like this eternal child we see inside of all depictions of Miquella, barring the cocoon and the Halig Tree cocoon. Now, if you thought this couldn't get even more crazy, then you'd be completely wrong, because this is getting even more batshit insane. We're making the moist meter look like the Sahara fucking desert with this one. I also believe that maybe Miquella is going to be the final boss of the DLC, but not actually inside the childlike form. Instead, inside the fully realised form inside of the cocoon, fully revitalised. As we know, like Morgott, his body is dehydrated and is really crippled. I don't actually think the guy in the cocoon is going to be his full power. It's going to be a lot more rejuvenated, and that's what we're going to see inside the DLC, maybe as the final boss. We know that From Software never shows their final bosses inside trailers, so to immediately assume that Messmer is the final boss is quite naive, and I don't think that he's going to be the final boss. I do think he's probably going to be a lead up, run up to the final boss, but not actually the final boss. There's also the topic of the Messmer and Miquella. Are they fighting? Are they not? Well, we don't really know, but there are two sides to the war in the Land of Shadows. Maybe they're on opposite sides, maybe they're on the same. Who knows? We really can't know at this moment. A question you might now be wondering is, well, Malenia is the blade of Miquella. Surely she would know that Miquella wasn't actually the eternal child she thinks he is. But I think it's also important to remember that Melania is bloody blind. She is quite literally blind as a bat. And considering the fact from everything we know, she probably went blind from the scarlet rot pretty early on in life, we can, well, assume that when she wasn't blind, Miquella was a child. But as, obviously, her eyesight deteriorated and eventually disappeared, Miquella's going to grow up if he isn't actually an eternal child. Hence the whole weird, crusty abomination we see in the cocoon. A possibility for how the final boss might go, and a theory I have, is maybe it'll be like the Elden Beast Radhn, albeit a less shit fight than the Elden Beast. Maybe it'll be 2 in 1, so we'll fight Messmer, and then he'll die, and then Miquella will be like, "Hey, that's my brother, you get over here, you little twat," and then we, like, get sent to the 7th level of hell by Miquella. That's just a theory, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the route From Software goes down, as it would mimic the final boss of Elden Ring, which is Elden Beast and Radhn. If you need more proof that Miquella Boo Boo is not exactly who he says he is, we first need to look at the Shadow of the Erdtree and what we know about it. We're told that he divested himself of his flesh, his lineage, of all things golden. He did that. If he was kidnapped by Mohg, like we're told time after time, then surely he wouldn't be divesting himself. That makes no sense. The only conclusion I can come to from this is the fact that Miquella wasn't actually kidnapped and willingly went. It's been my theory for a long time now that maybe Miquella wasn't kidnapped and perhaps used a bewitching branch on Mohg, as we know he does that a lot, the best example being his soldiers, which he quite literally turned into suicide bombers. If this is actually the case, then this adds a whole new tragic layer to Mohg. He is already a really tragic character, having been locked underground for centuries possibly by his own mother, only to escape, be manipulated by the Bloodstar and, well, then perhaps be bewitched by Miquella. He is a really tragic character, and I hope we get some more information on his backstory in the DLC, especially considering his connection to Miquella and the connection Miquella holds to the Shadow of the Erdtree. If you're still doubting Miquella being a good guy, then let's revisit the topic of the fact that he quite literally bewitches his followers. He bewitches his followers and they turn it into suicide bombers, sacrificing their life for Miquella. They believe they're doing this of their own free will, but as we are told in item descriptions, he's simply bewitching them and manipulating them. I honestly don't see how people can think that this guy is a good guy. He is quite literally forcing people to become suicide bombers. Something that feels really reminiscent to this inside the Shadow of the Erdtree trailer is the fact that the character that narrates it says that they chose to follow Miquella here. Now, from everything we know about Miquella's followers, they don't choose jack shit. They are forced to do basically everything, or at least supposedly. So I think maybe we might get some sort of information on this bewitching from them. Hell, maybe part of their questline will be us unbewitching them, shedding them of Miquella's influence, and then perhaps learning how they came under Miquella's influence in the first place. I want to go back to the whole ring topic we talked about a bit earlier in the video. Now, if you remember, the ring that is on Miquella's finger inside the cocoon is different to anything on top of Morgoth's model. It's an added asset. And the fact that Mohg caresses it weirdly in a brother-loving way suggests that it is something of importance, and I 100% believe that. Is it just me, or does this ring look like roots being curled around until it's made this ring being formed? If this is actually the case and it is from some kind of tree, what tree is it from? Well, where does Mohg come from? I think this has been heavily overlooked and not talked about very often or much, but Mohg comes out of a pile of blood after touching the hand, the same hand that we supposedly touched to enter the DLC. So it only makes sense that perhaps he is in there with Miquella, that he is in the Shadow of the Erdtree, in the Shadow Realm. So if that's actually the case, and he's been in the Shadow Realm, then why can't this ring be from the Shadow Realm? And what tree is also in the Shadow Realm? Well, none other than the Wish.com eBay-esque Erdtree. I don't know, am I going crazy? Please let me know. I am curious to hear what you all have to say about this. Sadly everyone, that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel, and it also lets me know that you're enjoying this style of content and want to see more. This was honestly such a fun video to make. I know so many people have made Miquella videos, but I think Miquella's such an in-depth and intriguing character that I just wanted to talk about him again. I really do hope you have a great rest of your day, and yeah, may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye everyone.